"We're going to run Venezuela." That's not me paraphrasing. That's not taken out of context. That's a direct quote from Donald Trump a few hours ago, standing at Mar-a-Lago telling the world that the United States of America is going to run another country. Not help, not support, not assist in a democratic transition. Run like a business, like a subsidiary, like a franchise location that wasn't hitting its quarterly numbers. And here's the thing that should terrify you or fascinate you, or maybe both. He said the quiet part out loud, the part that every American president since Eisenhower has carefully wrapped in diplomatic language about promoting democracy and supporting our allies and protecting American interests. Trump just skipped all that. He looked at the cameras and said, "Yeah, we're running Venezuela now. Deal with it." And what he did after that, what happened in the next 48 hours, that's where this gets absolutely insane. Let me walk you through what just happened. Because the mainstream media is reporting this like it's normal, like it's just another foreign policy decision. But when you actually line up the facts, when you read what Trump and his team actually said, you realize we're watching something unprecedented in modern American history. So here's the timeline. Pay attention because this moved fast. January 1st, 2026. U.S. Navy establishes a complete blockade around Venezuela. Not a presence, not a show of force, a blockade. Like we're at war, cutting off oil tankers, preventing ships from leaving port, essentially strangling the country's only economic lifeline. January 2nd, U.S. Special Forces captured Nicolas Maduro. And I want you to really absorb this. They didn't negotiate his surrender. They didn't wait for some international tribunal. They just grabbed him. The president of a sovereign nation, plucked off his own soil, now sitting in a cell somewhere, while the United States decides what to do with him. January 3rd, Trump holds a press conference, says the United States is going to run Venezuela. When reporters ask what that means, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, appears on ABC News and says, quote, "The new leaders of Venezuela need to meet our demands. Our demands, not the Venezuelan people's demands, not the international community's demands. Ours." January 4th today, CNN reports that Trump's team has already picked Venezuela's next leader. And here's where your brain should short circuit. They didn't pick the opposition leader. They didn't pick Maria Corina Machado, the woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2024 for fighting for democracy in Venezuela, the woman millions of Venezuelans actually voted for. They picked Delcy Rodríguez, Maduro's vice president, a member of his regime, someone the United States had previously sanctioned for being part of an illegitimate government. Let me say that again slower. We captured the dictator, then we installed his second in command, and told her she works for us now. If this were a movie script, I'd reject it for being too absurd. But this is real. This happened. This is happening right now. Now let's talk about the players because you need to understand who these people are. Nicolas Maduro, dictator, socialist, ran Venezuela into the ground for over a decade, presided over the largest refugee crisis in Latin American history, now sitting in a cell somewhere between Cuba and Miami, probably still confused about how this happened so fast. Delcy Rodríguez, Maduro's vice president, loyal party member, previously sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury Department, now apparently America's chosen leader for Venezuela's transition. And I'm using air quotes so hard my fingers hurt. Maria Corina Machado, opposition leader, Nobel Peace Prize winner, represents the actual democratic movement in Venezuela, millions of supporters, was winning in every poll, and Trump called her someone who lacks respect, his word, respect. The woman who risked her life fighting a dictatorship lacks respect, but the dictator's VP is apparently management material. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, Cuban-American, spent his entire political career talking about fighting socialism in Latin America. Now the chief architect of putting a socialist regime member in charge of Venezuela. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Doug Burgum and Chris Wright, Secretary of Interior and Secretary of Energy, respectively. Their job, according to CNN, convincing American energy companies to return to Venezuela and its aging oil infrastructure. Remember that. We'll come back to it. So those are your players. Now let's talk about the contradiction that nobody in the mainstream media wants to address directly. The United States just conducted a military operation to remove a dictator. That part, okay, fine. Lots of people hated Maduro. The guy was genuinely terrible. No tears being shed there. But then we didn't give power to the Democrats. We didn't hold elections. We didn't even pretend to care what the Venezuelan people wanted. We installed Maduro's vice president and told her to take orders from Washington. That's not liberation. That's not regime change. That's not even imperialism in the classic sense. That's a hostile takeover, and Trump isn't hiding it. That's the part that breaks my brain. Previous presidents would have given some speech about supporting the democratic aspirations of the Venezuelan people while quietly doing exactly what Trump is doing. But Trump just walked up to the microphone and said, "We're going to run Venezuela." The man couldn't be subtle if his life depended on it. And honestly, in this case, I'm almost grateful. Because at least we know what we're dealing with. Let me read you exactly what Trump said. This is from the press conference, and I want you to hear his words. "We're going to run Venezuela. We're going to run it, and we're going to run it well. Pause. Run it, not assist it, not support it, run it. Like it's a Trump hotel that was underperforming. Like it's a reality TV show that needed new management. Like it's a subsidiary that wasn't meeting its KPIs. He continued, and if they don't do what's right, if the people we put in place don't do what we need them to do, they're going to have problems. Big problems. When reporters asked what run means, Trump pointed at Marco Rubio and said, Marco is going to be one of the people running it. We have a great team, the best team. So a reporter, God bless them, asked Rubio directly, what does it mean that the United States is going to run Venezuela? And Rubio, to his credit or discredit, depending on your perspective, gave an answer. He said, and I'm reading from the ABC News transcript, what we are running is the direction that this is going to move moving forward. We have leverage. This leverage we are using. The new leaders of Venezuela need to meet our demands. Our demands. Not Venezuela's demands, not the opposition's demands, not even the international community's demands. Our demands. Tom Cotton, senator from Arkansas, went on CNN this morning and said it even more clearly. We want them to expel the Cubans and the Iranians and the Islamic radicals, and we want them to return to the civilized world and be a good neighbor. We want. Notice what's missing from all of this. Any mention of what Venezuelans want, any reference to elections, any pretense that this is about democracy, because it's not, and they're not even pretending anymore. Now let's talk about who got chosen and who got rejected, because this is where the whole thing goes from alarming to absolutely dystopian. Maria Corina Machado. Let me tell you about her. In 2024, she won the Nobel Peace Prize. The committee cited her unwavering commitment to democratic principles in the face of authoritarian repression. She spent years building a genuine opposition movement. She survived assassination attempts. She was arrested multiple times. She represents, according to every poll, what millions of Venezuelans actually want. Trump's assessment of her? Quote, she doesn't have the respect needed to lead Venezuela. Respect. From whom? From him? From Washington? Because she seems to have the respect of the Venezuelan people, but I guess that doesn't count. Trump said he was never fully sold on Machado. Sources told CNN that advisors warned him she was untested in power and not a guaranteed bet, so instead they went with someone who is tested in power, someone they know will cooperate, someone predictable, Delcy Rodríguez. Vice President under Maduro, member of his inner circle, previously described by the U.S. State Department as part of an illegitimate regime, sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury, banned from traveling to the United States. And now she's America's chosen leader for Venezuela. CNN reports that U.S. officials zeroed in on Rodriguez weeks ago because she could provide a stable transition, offer a more professional relationship than Maduro, and most importantly, ensure future American energy investments were protected. Read that last part again. Ensure future American energy investments were protected. Not ensure democracy, not ensure human rights, not ensure free elections. Ensure American energy investments were protected. And in case you think I'm reading into this, Trump himself said it explicitly. When asked about Venezuela's oil reserves, he said, "We're taking control of Venezuela's oil reserves. We're taking control." Not supporting Venezuela's energy sector, not helping rebuild their infrastructure, taking control. And he assigned Doug Burgum and Chris Wright, the Interior and Energy Secretaries, to go convince American energy companies to return to Venezuela. So let's connect the dots here because they're not exactly hidden. Step 1, remove Maduro. Step 2, install someone who will cooperate. Step 3, get American companies control of the oil. Step 4, profit. I mean, they're not even trying to hide it. It's right there. It's in the CNN article. It's in Trump's own words. It's in the official assignments given to cabinet members. This isn't about democracy. It never was. And for the first time in my lifetime, an American president is just saying that part out loud. But here's where it gets even darker. Here's the part that made my jaw actually drop when I read it. Trump was asked about Delcy Rodríguez. Specifically, what happens if she doesn't cooperate, if she doesn't do what we want, to use his phrase. And Trump said, quote, if she doesn't do what's right, she is going to pay a very big price, probably bigger than Maduro. Let that sink in. He just captured a dictator, removed him from power, put him in a cell somewhere, and then immediately threatened the next leader, the person he chose, told her that if she doesn't obey American orders, she'll face consequences worse than the guy he just kidnapped. That's not diplomacy. That's not foreign policy. That's a protection racket. Nice country you got here. Shame if something happened to it. Just do what we say, and everything will be fine. And Rodriguez, to her credit, or maybe just her survival instinct, immediately went on Venezuelan TV and declared that Maduro is still the legitimate head of state and called the American operation barbarity. But according to CNN, U.S. officials viewed her comments as targeted toward an internal audience and were nonplussed that she appeared to be publicly rebuffing Trump's claims. Translation, they don't care what she says in public, they care what she does in private. Say whatever you need to say to keep the Venezuelan public calm. But behind closed doors, you do what we tell you. Rubio confirmed this on NBC. He said, "We're going to make an assessment on the basis of what they do, not what they say publicly." It's also beautifully cynical. Say whatever you want for the cameras, but when it comes to actual policy, when it comes to who gets access to the oil fields, when it comes to which companies get which contracts, you do what Washington tells you. Now let's zoom out. Let's talk about what this means historically, geopolitically, and for American politics. Historically, this isn't new. We've done this before. Many times. We just usually lied about it better. Iraq 2003. Remove Saddam Hussein, install a temporary authority, promise democracy, maintain control of oil infrastructure. How'd that work out? Afghanistan 2001. Remove the Taliban, install a transitional government, promise democracy, maintain military presence for 20 years. How'd that end? Panama 1989. Capture Manuel Noriega, install a friendly government, ensure Canal Zone security. At least that one was honest about being a drug war operation. The pattern is always the same. Remove unfriendly government, install friendly government, promise democracy, maintain American control of strategic resources. The only difference this time is Trump isn't bothering with the democracy part. He's not giving the speech about supporting the democratic aspirations of the Venezuelan people. He's just saying, we're running this now. And you know what? Part of me almost respects it. Not the imperialism, obviously not the imperialism, but the honesty. Previous presidents did the exact same thing while pretending it was about human rights and freedom. Trump is just saying it's about oil and control. At least you know where you stand. Geopolitically, this is sending shockwaves through Latin America. Brazil? Silent. Completely silent. Lula, who positioned himself as the progressive leader of the region, has said nothing substantive. Colombia? Silent. Mexico? Silent. They're terrified. Because if the United States can just grab Venezuela's president and install a puppet government, what's stopping them from doing it anywhere else? China and Russia, predictably, are screaming about American interventionism and violation of sovereignty, which would be more compelling if they weren't doing the exact same thing in their own spheres of influence. Europe is issuing carefully worded statements about concern for regional stability, while privately probably relieved that someone else is dealing with the Venezuelan refugee crisis. And Latin America is learning a very clear lesson. Democracy is negotiable. Oil is not. If you're sitting on resources America wants and you're not cooperating, democracy doesn't matter. Elections don't matter. International law doesn't matter. What matters is whether you're useful. Domestically, this tells us something about Trump's second term that should alarm everyone, regardless of your politics. In 2016, Trump ran on no more regime change. He criticized the Iraq War. He said we needed to stop being the world's policeman. In 2026, he's literally announcing that we're going to run another country. What changed? He stopped pretending. That's what changed. The regime change never stopped. We've been doing it continuously through sanctions, through covert operations, through support for opposition groups. Every president does it. Trump is just doing it openly. He's saying, yeah, we do regime change, and we're going to run the place afterward and deal with it. And half the country is going to love it because at least he's honest about empire. At least he's not wrapping it in humanitarian language. He's just saying, we want the oil. We're taking the oil. We're putting people in charge who will give us the oil. It's imperialism without the guilt. Colonialism with a corporation logo instead of a flag, and the other half of the country is going to be horrified. But what are they going to do? The previous administration was doing the same thing, they were just quieter about it. So here's where we are. The United States captured a dictator, check. Ignored the Nobel Peace Prize winner, check. Installed the dictator's vice president, check. Announced we're running the country, check. Threatened the new leader if she doesn't cooperate, check. Sent energy secretaries to secure oil contracts, check. Said elections are premature, check. So let me ask you, is this liberation or is this colonialism with better PR? Because one thing is conspiracy theory. Another thing is the Secretary of State going on ABC News and saying that elections are premature while warships surround a country we just invaded. Two former State Department officials told CNN that Rodriguez would only cooperate if the U.S. offered protection for regime leadership. One said, for Delcy, she's not going to put her head on the block and say, hack away. Any deal has to offer protection to the leadership. So we're not even getting regime change. We're getting regime preservation with new management. The same people who ran Venezuela into the ground under Maduro are going to keep running it. They're just going to take orders from Washington now instead of Caracas. It's brilliant in a horrifying way. You don't have to build a new government from scratch. You don't have to deal with messy elections or unpredictable opposition leaders. You just take the existing power structure and point it in a different direction. Efficient, pragmatic, absolutely dystopian. And unmentioned in all of this, barely a footnote in the coverage, is whether Trump wants to see democracy in Venezuela. Rubio said, we all wish to see a bright future for Venezuela, transition to democracy. But then added, we need to deal with the immediate reality. The immediate reality being oil, being control, being making sure American companies get access to those reserves before China or Russia can establish a foothold. Democracy can wait. Democracy is always something we'll get to later. After we secure the resources, after we establish control, after we make sure the right people are in charge. It's the same promise we made in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Libya, in every country we've liberated in the last 50 years. And it never comes. Because democracy is messy. Democracy means people might vote for someone who doesn't want to give us their oil. Democracy means uncertainty. But a protectorate is predictable, controllable, profitable. So that's what we're building in Venezuela. Not a democracy, a protectorate. An American-managed state that looks independent on paper, but takes orders from Washington in practice. And Trump isn't hiding it. He's bragging about it. We're going to run Venezuela, and we're going to run it well. Like it's a business acquisition. Like it's a merger. Like Venezuela is now a wholly owned subsidiary of the United States of America. So here's my question for you. Is this intervention legitimate? Or is this a new kind of imperialism dressed up in 21st century language? Was the Democratic opposition betrayed? Because it sure looks like the woman who won the Nobel Prize for fighting dictatorship just watched America install the dictatorship's number 2. And was oil always the real objective? Because they're not even trying to hide it anymore. Comment below. Tell me if you think this is justified. Tell me if you think Trump is finally being honest about what American foreign policy has always been. Tell me if you think there's any universe where this ends well for Venezuela. And share this, because CNN reported it, the Wall Street Journal covered it, but they buried the lead. The headline shouldn't be Trump clarifies comments about Venezuela. The headline should be United States installs protectorate in Venezuela, announces it will control oil production. But that would require admitting what we're actually doing. And apparently only Trump is willing to do that. We're running Venezuela now. He said it. His team confirmed it. And in a few months, when American oil companies are operating those fields, when Delcy Rodríguez is signing whatever contracts Washington puts in front of her, when elections are still premature, remember this moment. Remember when they told you exactly what they were doing. And you have to decide, is honesty about empire better than lying about democracy? Because that's the choice we're being offered. And it's a hell of a choice.